Okay, we're going to go ahead and start this session. For those of you who don't know, I'm Mona Lisa, Traffic Safety Specialist for TechScott out of the San Angelo area, and also run the Motorcycle Safety Program. So enough about me. Let's go on. We've got some really good speaker this morning. We're going to be talking about getting rid of risky riding. So please welcome, you heard from her already, Dr. Eva Ship, Senior Research Scientist, and Emily Martin, Associate Research Scientist with Texas A&M Transportation Institute. You can also read their bios in the program that was distributed earlier. We're also a reminder to, at the end of the session, go ahead and shoot that QR code at the back of the program and fill out a survey. It's really important for us to evaluate the forum. And then I heard it's just 1 or 2 questions, so don't be scared, okay? So without further ado, Dr. Eva Ship.
As Mona Lisa said, my name is Emily Martin. Eva and I will be kind of tag teaming this meeting today. We want this to be informal, interactive, so we're going to kind of get us started by doing some group think and try to get those juices flowing and see if we've now had enough coffee to successfully make coherent thoughts this morning. So we are going to be talking about how we can use theories and such to get rid of risky riding. So let's start off over this shoulder with some brainstorming about how we can really encourage change among a group of people, in this case probably riders. If you're wanting to encourage change among people, what do you do? What have you found that works if you're trying to motivate people to do something different?
Get educated.
Get educated? So that's on us, right? We have to be educated enough to talk to them about it. What else works?
Provide role models.
Provide role models, yes.
Good examples.
Yeah, great. Anything else yet?
Ask them questions.
Ask them questions, maybe find some of their intrinsic motivation, those types of things. Here's the fun one. What doesn't work?
Telling them what to do.
Telling them what to do is right.
Telling people what to do. No one wants an idea thrown down their throat, do they? What else?
Not walking the talk. Yeah. Do as I say, don't do as I do. If you do tell somebody to do something, I would do like this, and you don't do it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Not,
But
be a
they
bad
see
example.
I'm up here. I'm doing this and telling you shouldn't do something, and then I'm gonna step right over here.
How about you might direct go like this? But this is the way we've always done it.
Yes. Oh, we love that. The way we've always done it, right? Especially now when so much has changed in the last couple of years. We're finding ourselves in that habit, trying to get out of that with doing virtual activities and those types of things too. So all great examples. So let's kind of think through, how do we organize what we know about what works and what doesn't, and really try to come up with good dynamic ways to organize our thoughts and help change behavior. And that is where theories come in and why we like to use them. So a theory is just a model, a picture of what components can go into really making a change. There are a ton of behavioral change theories out there. We're going to talk about 3 specific today and do an activity surrounding one. But it really just kind of helps us think through all aspects of an approach. It keeps us from single tracking our mind, going, okay, we want to make this change, and we're going to do that by doing this one single activity. It really helps us kind of think through how we can make ideas useful and resonate with everybody. I really love food, so I like to think of theories as a list and not necessarily a recipe. So, like on the screen, we've got eggs, butter, milk, flour. We could be making biscuits. We could be making pancakes, all types of good stuff, bread with these different ingredients. That might be a little off, but all that to say is that what we are talking about today is not necessarily a prescription or a recipe for something, but more so a way to come up with a list of things that we could think about including when we start doing initiatives or things to really promote behavior change. So the first one we're going to jump into is the health belief model. And you kind of start at the top of this model. You never know where to start with these, but it perceives self-efficacy. And so that's the belief of, can I do it? And so when we start there, people can say, can I do this? And then moving down to the perceived threat, and then perceived severity or susceptibility of something happening to them. There's also cues to action, which feed into the perceived threat in the middle. Cue to action is something like causes you to do something. So for some of us, it's like when you get up in the morning, you turn on the water, you brush your teeth, and then you wash your face. So maybe for washing your face, your cue to action is brushing your teeth. It's the thing that comes right before that. Moving over to more of the right side is the perceived benefits minus the perceived barriers. Kind of what the keynote speaker was talking about earlier was really helpful in kind of this holistic approach. And that's that we're always having to weigh pros and cons to a single situation. Even if we know that a behavior is super healthy and we should do it, those cakes and cookies still taste really good, right? So we always have to try to balance that perceived threat there, and then or benefits and the barriers to it. And then the likelihood of doing a health-related behavior is kind of our endpoint. And so you can see in this model, a lot of our arrows face one direction. When we get into the next one, we will see lots of different arrows. But the goal would be that if you were trying to come up with a way to encourage behavior change, that you might think through the topics in each of these boxes, which we're going to do in a minute. So if this isn't quite making sense yet, give us just a second to get through. Trying to keep us on our original time frame, so we'll see how that goes. The next one is theory of planned behavior, and this is the one that we're going to work through most intensely today. And you start by reading this on the very left side. The top of it, we've got attitudes, the middle, norms, and that's what the norm is of a community. There's lots of norms in the motorcycle community, right? It's probably a very big thing that you think about. So for an individual's perspective, if that's normal, if that's what most of the group is doing, then that's most likely what I'm going to try to fit in and do when I want to belong to that group. On the bottom, we've got perceived behavioral control. So that's kind of like self-efficacy, but a little bit different in that it's whether I can really change this behavior, whether this behavior is something that I can shift personally, or whether it's something that maybe is out of my control based on other factors around. Then we've got intentions. We all know about that. Hopefully all good intentions, but sometimes not always the case. And then at the end, we've got the behavior change at the end. And I'm going to get us through one more before we start really connecting the dots here, and that is the diffusion of innovation. And this is a theory that I think can be really helpful in situations in which you might be trying to make a larger change in a larger group of people, and particularly with something that might be new. And that is that in order to really diffuse an to really create change among a group, you've got to think about the different communication channels that you're going through, not single tracking on just doing one thing. You've got to think about the time that it takes to really get that information out to the group of people, the social system in which the information is going to go out, and then what the actual innovation or idea is. And so, like I said, these are a small glimpse into what the big world of behavior change theory are, but some that might be most applicable to this group. So now that we've gone through all that boring stuff, let's talk about the real world. So when we talk about motorcycle stuff, our group was trying to brainstorm, how do we really translate this from this paper to really making it applicable to this group. And there's lots of different behaviors that you might be trying to change among people, right? So helping to encourage not driving under the influence, choosing to go safe routes, wearing protective gear, passing safely, getting an M endorsement, all of these things. And today we're going to focus on kind of traveling at an appropriate speed and thinking through how we can really use some of these theories to try to help get people to ride at speed safe for the conditions in which they're riding it, right? We won't limit it to speeding specifically. We'll be broad. Awesome. So addressing rider behavior, we know, and why we like to use theories for this, is that each driver has unique attitudes, characteristics, reasons for what they do, right? Sometimes we're speeding because it's fun. Sometimes we go fast because we're in a hurry because there's been a family emergency, right? There's the whole gamut of situations for why people might be making these choices. And then there's definitely challenges for developing countermeasures to influence rider behavior. So it's not one size fits all. It's something that we really need to work through and think how we can move through things. So let's put these theories into action and really make it applicable to motorcycle riding. So once again, this is the theory of planned behavior that we looked at earlier. I took out all the weird, helpful but sometimes distracting arrows back and forth between things. So this is kind of a simplified version of one of the models you saw earlier. And trying to translate what might be in each of these categories for it. So if we start at the top left, this is a filled out theory for encouraging people to get an M endorsement. Once again, y'all are the experts here, so please feel free if there's other ideas or things you have. I'm going to read through what we've got on the screen because I know that in the back that's probably a little bit hard to see. But throw out your other ideas too. We definitely want to be collaborative here. So in the attitudes section at the top left, attitudes that might affect someone's willingness to get an M endorsement. The attitude that training will make me safer, or something that might discourage people from getting it is like, meh, I won't get a ticket if I don't have an M endorsement. It's not that important, right? So these categories might contain opposite views because one person in the room might have a different view than someone else in here. Reading into the subjective norms, this one I think is a great one for clubs and the community to come together for, and that's, in this case, if really most people in my club have an M endorsement, that must be important and I'm going to get it too. Perceived behavioral control, that's whether the person that needs the M endorsement really can know, oh, I know where I can go to get the information for how to get my M endorsement. Oh, I know that the training will help me be safer. I know and have the ability to access this information. Which leads us to the box in the middle, which is intentions. So these are individual intentions. I can make time to take the course. I can set aside funds to do the course. And all of this will hopefully, in the right context, lead to our far right box, which is the individual obtaining an M endorsement. So that's what we got there. Do y'all see anything that we really left off of here that you would think might belong in one of these boxes?
When we're developing creative, we kind of take the opposite side versus all of these positive statements. Because it's the people that don't have it, and why don't they? What do they currently believe? What are those obstacles? So it's, I don't have the time. I don't know where to find a course. I can't afford it. All of those kinds of things, those obstacles, and then figuring out what are reasons to believe of why they can get it, so that you can create those intentions. Yeah,
I'll repeat it because we've got some people online. But he was pointing out that when they are thinking through what might belong in these categories, that really taking kind of the opposite standpoint for the statement. So some of these are kind of positive. This will make me safer. This I can find this information, and in turn they would say maybe why this isn't important to them, or that they don't know where to get the behavior or get the information. Sorry. So that they can really think through from the naysayer's point of view, paraphrasing a bit, why they might not be trying to obtain this information and ultimately get the endorsement.
I always like to add education to training. I think our community relies too much on training. Don't look at the undercurrent of education goes behind that. And I think when we're asked to prove we're valuable, training alone will never prove it. You can get them their license, but so what after that for them? Just like the bottom left of there, where it says, in the middle box you've got there, less than 5% of people come back for further training after they get their license. Big gap there. We're trying to address that in MSF. We have for years. Moving forward, we're going to try to do that even more. So the end license becomes the end all. It's constant, never-ending improvement. And that's why we like the idea of lifelong learning, but trying to make it attractive. For example, tiered licensing is being talked about a little bit. Graduate licensing is. And those are all issues surrounding this. It's a good pattern you've got up there.
Yeah. Good.
I got a question, kind of off the is. Most courses are designed for the traditional motorcycle, that's a manual, gear shift, and everything. Very few courses are dedicated to the alternatives, like the Can-Amps, also the automatic motorcycles. So when you go, like when I got my license, my Can-Amp, it was a beginner's course only. And it was just enough, but I had to learn everything on my own, because just get out on the highway and everything learning that was scary sin. I'll flat out admit that. There's got to be more for these particular different types of motorcycles than what there is now, because everybody's always towards the traditional stuff.
Agree. We do have a regular three-wheel, which you probably took the basic rider course in three-wheel.
I took it for the Can-Am.
Yes, we have, and we've got an advanced course we're developing for that. And that's going to help somewhat. And the new exercises we developed will allow three-wheel machines in. You have to have a license already, but it's that further training after you take the basics. So we're working on that.
Okay.
But our 95% plus is all two-wheel traditional. It's moving toward electric, and three-wheel. It's hard to find where motorcycle is anymore. So we're looking at all that, but the mainstream is still right in that focus point. Very good point you bring up.
Love the conversation. That's great. So we filled this out really nicely. Yeah, yes. Now what, right? Like, how do we really translate this into action? And it might look different for different people in this group, because you might serve in different capacities, be with different groups of people. If you're working for an advertising agency, that what you do with it might be different. But what we want to kind of send as the takeaway home today is this kind of gives you lots of different thoughts to think through. Okay, if we're trying to get people to get this endorsement, how can we throw lots of things at the wall and see what sticks? How can we see what can resonate with different folks while still trying to get to the same outcome? Because we all know what works for me might not work for you, might not work for someone else. And so this is kind of gives us maybe our ingredient list, right? And we can go back and say, now, what product are we going to make from that, and what can we do? If you're with a club, you might really have more of an ability to kind of think through the subjective norms in your group. Like, is this a norm in our club to admit this behavior? Great, let's highlight that. Or, you know what? Maybe it's not. That might be where we need to start for our group. So that's kind of where this can translate into action and be helpful. So that way you're not just going kind of one track looking for one solution to a problem when might need to hit off some different things. So we are not going to make you sit and listen to this all day. We've got an activity for us to work through, and we are going to be working on filling out kind of a chart for changing the speed behavior. We know that with speed, there's higher injury severities that come from that, and there's lots of ways in which we might reduce driver speed. So we're not trying to peg you into one box here. You can choose what your focus is going to be on. But we've got, we'll go to the next slide. Trying to do good on our time to make up for our wonderful morning session, which was also helpful. And set a perfect tone for kind of the holistic approach to this. So what we're going to do is we have nobody go into, shock when you see the old school whiteboards for science fair. It's 3 a.m. and your kid has just come to you and said, this is due tomorrow, please help. I thought about breaking out the glitter, but I thought that might cause some hives and bad flashbacks. So I kept it really simple so no one goes into that panic mode. But we've got a set of 7 sets of whiteboards with the different topics for the theory on there, and we've got a bag of Post-it notes with pins. And what we want you to do is kind of go through each of the sections and think through what might belong in these categories for the ultimate outcome of reducing driving at an unsafe speed. So we don't have that category on there because we know that's kind of our final outcome. So we'll let y'all choose how you want to kind of divide amongst yourself. If it doesn't work out that it's 7 groups, that's fine. That's just our max number of wonderful science fair boards. So that gives us our limit. But we're going to go through, encourage y'all to, talk through what belongs in the categories. If y'all knock that out quickly, then you can start kind of brainstorming. Right, now cool, what do we do with this? What actions do we have the ability to affect in our group? So we will, the boards and such are right up here. Eva and I will kind of flutter around, be glad to help walk through anything, problem solve, and certainly let us know if you have questions for our, so people who are willing to be our leaders have come up here and grab this from Eva. I'll give our instructions.
Yes, we do have online people, and Cody's just put the link in the.
Awesome. To our online group, Cody just posted the link to the Jamboard in the chat. If you have a Google account and have the ability to kind of interact with the Jamboard, you can kind of use that to fill in different ideas to go over each of the categories. We will keep an eye on that as the other groups do their presentations and add to the conversation if there's things that other groups don't bring up that y'all have brought up. If you don't have a Gmail account or can't access the Jamboard, sorry, just feel free to do the activity on your own and stay tuned to see what all the other
evaluation here. Okay.
So it would be like, I like to say, or I heard you kind of say it earlier, like sometimes it's safer sharing. And that is also an attitude, right? So because that's how we
Because I think you got it handled for right now.
Stay with us.
Right, so, and those are super valid reasons to go. I was thinking that, oh my God, here, when I was looked down at this governor, I was trying to get around the group, and it's not particularly safely, and so then I got to this one. And that is a very, like, legitimate reason to do that, and so that's okay, right? We just want to really in this case, sometimes, I think that is the sort of safer thing to do. And so you're not, that's maybe not the situation that you're gonna get right, like, if you decide to change like this, maybe ease up on that aspect of it, but you find that there's another category which is.
Okay, so our brainstorming is different categories.
Yeah. Okay, more coffee. Scientific, I look forward to it. Oh, all right.
So I'm gonna just stick this up in the sometimes. So just clean up. Let's pick one that what is it?
Belief that one can exercise control says belief that one can exercise control.
That's not really out there. Perceive control. Requires writing. Not that it's.
There's an incentive. Because you're saying, yeah. Well, it's just about insurance. Yeah, right, yeah, you're right.
Pull it up on this one. Will it mess anything up? It shouldn't mess anything up because it's yeah. I just want to see kind of if people are. So I'm not positive that we have removed people on this session. You need access. Oh, because it's coded. I know, but it's a Gmail, so it should be anyone with the link.
I've got a question. Are we making these?
It can be both. So a lot of times we are seeing wood ceiling, right? Because there's actually areas like our attitude should be into our intention should be our intention. So yes, but looks like we've got lots of great writers. That's so for that as well as start to condense
So like,
Done anything?
because they can request access and no one's requested access. So
Just before, like, right as we all went to the participants and Cody's thing and didn't really see so they may not have either they tried it a couple of days before we got started. No, there's no people left. Yeah, people tuning in this morning. Very much. Why don't you just see a good idea.
all right, we got. We'll share back out in about 2 minutes. So we have last thoughts.
no, it isn't. No, not everything. This is a breakout. This is So this is what it should look like when we I think it could, Michelle, to panic attack. With your slide deck, and then on the slide here, you couldn't see
What does it say?
Believe that one has. What? Oh, I believe. Where did you have to write Are you driving?
All right, let's come back together.
You gotta speak up a little louder than that.
I'm not good at the speaking up part, apparently. Sorry. Let's come back together.
Oh, you can advance one slide. Yes. She was just checking to see if anyone could get.
Awesome. Thank y'all for y'all's participation. It's awesome to look out and see people actively working. We are going to do a little bit of group share here and then lunch, I think. So, right? That's motivation to share readily so that we can.
Let's see. Oh no, we have one more session.
Oh, one more session.
Yeah, but a break anyway.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
Break time. False alarm in. All right. No docking points for that. So we're going to just kind of do an informal group share here. Anybody want to share what they put under attitudes? What your favorite attitudes were? Perfect.
We kind of focused on the lack of people having an M1. So, and we went with your suggestion with kind of negative attitudes. So one was you can totally buy a bike without a license. So you have a bike, okay, don't have a license. The cost of getting a license would be a negative attitude. And we don't see the value of training, or, oh, it's, I bought a bike, it's no one else's business what my licensing status is.
Yep.
So those were some examples.
All great ones for the M endorsement. Perfect. Anybody else want to share what some of their attitudes were?
Sure. So we're focused on safe riding, of course. So some of our attitudes were sometimes it's more important to speed to keep up with the flow of traffic. Another attitude some have is sort of being afraid or nervous of getting lost on a group ride. And that prompts speeding and sometimes unsafe behavior, trying to keep together.
Yep, all awesome examples.
We kind of went with the shameful attitude about speeding. It's fun and indifference. We're better than others. We're powerful. We have time constraints, and we're invincible.
There we go. Yeah. I think these are all really great for this exercise specifically because sometimes these attitudes are really hard to overcome, or you might not necessarily want to overcome all of them, and that's just important to acknowledge. Any other attitudes we want to share?
Just kind of echo some of theirs. I mean, it's not going to happen to me. It's kind of the invincible attitude. Can't tell me what to do. I'm only going a short distance, and I've got my license. What else do you want? Like, I've completed everything. I'm not going to.
Yeah. Awesome. What about subjective norms?
Everyone else is doing it.
Yeah.
That's what I had.
Yeah. Everybody's got that one. Yeah.
We have, in rural areas, law enforcement's kind of lacking, so the likelihood of you getting pulled over on your motorcycle and getting a ticket for license is so low.
Yeah.
So it's just like, well, who's gonna catch me?
Yep.
So like depending on, this is individual club, if it's club of your, if it's a guideline of your club, that you have to show you an license and proof of insurance to be part of the club. But that, again, that's very subjective because, of course, it is with each individual club and how far out they kind of go.
Right, but great example.
I don't want to pick on any special group, but this is common with crotch rocket guys. Speeding is cool and I'm tough, that kind of thing.
You have sport bikes, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, that guy. You know that guy.
Just because you're Harley can't speed.
All right, proceed behavioral control. I like this group. Proceed behavioral control.
Move that one down a little bit.
Anybody want to share what they had under that category?
Yeah, he was totally saying that as a subjective norm, not.
I think sometimes there's just a mentality that it's not going to happen to you. Does it? And then, especially in the rural areas, take advantage of the roads or farm and market roads, and oh, it's not going to happen to me, but yet it does. Yes. Yeah.
With one of the groups, we were talking about how sometimes you might speed around groups or around unsafe drivers to really increase how safe you feel. Might be an example too. Awesome. What about intentions? Anybody get to that category? Not quite. We don't have time.
So as you can all probably tell, we're kind of focused on, a group, our group. Yes, our group rides. So our intention, or maybe our goal, is to encourage our club members to ride at, I can't read it.
Safe speeds.
To ride at safe speeds. Stay together during group rides. And sometimes going back to the perceived behavior control, is we have to encourage people to trust the process. Our business rules for riding. Trust that the ride captain knows the route, what they're doing, and that your sweeper could go at the end and the middle. They know the route and they'll help you.
They know the speed, so they're going to go at the proper and safe speed. So trust that and ride in your group. Don't,
Yeah, correct.
And trust is way too you to
Great.
practice on training. That's right.
Awesome. Any other intentions?
You kind of notice with certain illicit behavior, it kind of snowballs. So if I'm already riding without a license, I don't care about wearing a helmet. And since I'm riding without a license and no helmet, might as well have a cold beer. And since I'm might as well go 90 miles an hour on the way home. And it's just kind of, you're already on the wrong side of the right behavior, and it just kind of snowballs. Well, might as well.
Honestly, it's kind of makes
Also, the opposite.
riding without a license sound fun.
Well.
It's fun for a short time, not a long time.
Awesome. Anybody come up with
From California.
with things that they might have talked about that would be helpful to implement when you go back to your clubs or organization, or anything that you want to share out with the group to wrap us up?
Kind of along that line, improving your behavior, we came up with some stuff like, you'll have better planning for your rides and stuff like that. Lower financial impacts eventually, saving traffic tickets or
Yeah, bottom
being
line.
responsible for a traffic accident or something. And then better health outcomes. You can ride longer in life if you don't wind yourself up in the corner every time you go out.
Yeah. One of the things I really love about a lot of these things that have been thrown out is that we're looking at all levels of, like, the social ecological fears. So we're looking at what individuals are doing, what kind of organizations are doing, what can the club do to help encourage these behaviors, what's going on in society as a whole. And so not every solution has to be individual oriented or organization oriented. There might be a bit of both or all, depending on what the behavior is that you're trying to change. And I think that that's sometimes it's always helpful for me when I'm trying to come up with solutions to think this doesn't have to all be trying to change one individual. What can we do structurally? Or like we were talking about earlier with some rides, you don't want everything to be structural, right? Like you might want to put some safeguards in place or some encouragements, but still people want to maintain individual autonomy, make their own choices, and that's important to leave room for. And so that's one of the things I like about this is that there's room for all of that.
Do you ever talk about staggered riding? Everybody in these groups want to ride as staggered, you know, in a group so they look cool and they're close together. We have a problem in Texas where a lot of your shoulders are not there or they're not paved. And if you have staggered riding and the guy on the right's right up against the shoulder, and I don't know about you young folks, but us old folks, we don't react too good, and when the shoulder goes away, we sometimes goes off the shoulder. So we kind of want everybody to ride in a single file rather than a staggered, because when you're close to the shoulder, it's unimproved and you fall off, it's pretty hard to get back on it.
That's why we write Can-Am style.
Yeah.
We're talking about two-wheelers.
Okay.
But it's something that we've run into a couple of times, that people go off the road when they're riding in staggered, but everybody thinks it's cool to ride staggered.
Yeah.
And it is cool, but us old people, we don't react so well. You know?
Well, and I think a good point to where sometimes needs are different for different people. So I think you bring up a really great point there, and I'm getting the wrap up look. So, but I do think there are probably some people here that are more apt at talking about that topic than I am. So we'll see if we can hook you up with someone that knows more than I do about that. So, awesome. So you're on a. Oh, I turned back over to Lisa.
No, you're.
No, I'll let you do your.
All right. All right, Gordon still. Go back one. What was that all about?
Oh, sorry. I forgot. So if you want to learn more about any of this, we do have a website that's still kind of in development, but can be helpful information for this. We included a QR code on here just because we know that you're all virtual or here, and that's the easiest way to capture the website address versus writing it down. However, I will tell you that it is not a website that was really made for mobile use, so I would encourage you to just use the QR code for now, and then when you're on a desktop, it really is going to be a much more user-friendly experience if you visit it in that capacity. So it has more information about all of these behavior change theories, information on how to evaluate to see if something works, all kinds of fun stuff. And if you have any questions about that, Eva and I are glad to help with anything. So thank you.
All right. There is a survey on the back table if you choose to fill one out, or you can again scan the QR code in the back of the program, fill it out. Again, there you go. Thank you. And so they're very helpful in evaluating the program. You have a 10-minute break before the next session. Thank you.
Yeah, and you can just leave your